Welcome back to the Mote Feedback Masterclass video series. In this video, we're going to explore the fifth step in our Feedback Masterclass, which is providing quality feedback. So in parts 1 through 4, we explored why feedback, various types, how to make feedback impactful, challenges and obstacles you may face. But now as we head into part 5, we're going to really examine this question of quality feedback. What does it look like? Now we're going to borrow from the work of Hattie as we explore these 3 questions that are going to really help us guide and structure what quality feedback looks like. Question number 1, students should be able to address when they're examining the feedback, and we should address this question when we're creating feedback, is help the student understand, where am I going? So what have I done up to this point, and where am I going with the work that I'm creating, and does it allow me to get closer to the learning target? How am I going? How is the process working out? How is the work that I'm developing and the work that I'm creating allowing me to get closer to that learning target? And then the last one is where to next, which is providing guidance and kind of realigning the student work in the direction they're taking to get them closer to that learning target. Now, these 3 alone, just these core questions, might not give us enough insight. So let's break each question down to really thoroughly understand back. So with regards to where am I going? The feedback specifically helps the learner understand what they don't know in relation to the clearly defined learning goals for that task. So if they're engaging with work and going down a path and maybe they're not quite aligning their work with the learning target, we can help them understand, like, here's where you are now and here's where we really need to see you end up. Additionally, the learning goals must be intentionally designed and students must have a clear understanding of the goal to then use this feedback. So if we're providing really high quality feedback and trying to align the student back towards the target, but they don't understand exactly what that learning target is, and it's not clearly defined, understood, and intentionally created, then the feedback really can't be of any value at all. Now, the second question provided, and this is all based on Hattie's work, how am I going? Now, to break this one down a little bit, the feedback that's focused on task performance that includes positive feedback and constructive criticism of the performance as it relates to the task. So we've kind of alluded to this idea already, that we can provide positive feedback. We can identify the strengths of the work, how the work is already aligning, but we can also kind of couch that positive feedback with corrective feedback or criticism. But again, to dive a little further, the feedback focuses on what progress is being made towards that clearly defined and understood learning target. This feedback is also linked to past performance to help illustrate growth and understanding. So we don't strictly have to talk about how they're doing now in this very instance or with this particular task or assignment. We can pull in previous experience. We can say, hey, I noticed the last time we were developing a thesis statement, or the last time you were trying to make a compelling argument using quotes from the text. This is something you were doing before. This is how it's improved. So you are going along these lines, maybe more productively, more effectively, or closer to that target than you have been in the past. And that's a way to provide that kind of positive, constructive feedback. The next question here, where to next? The feedback that focuses on what process the learner will use to improve and move forward and successfully complete the task. What specific activities or actions can be taken by the learner to improve the progress towards the learning target? So again, this was alluded to earlier in the video series. We're not providing feedback that's focused on the self or the individual. We're providing feedback that's focused on the work that the student has completed and what process they can use to get closer to that. So here's an action that you can take. There's a strategy that you can use. Here's a technique that you can implement that's going to allow you to get closer to that target. Now, we can also align like this idea of what does quality feedback look like, and like tie it to the structure of feedback. And these ideas are very similar and they overlap based on some of the ideas presented in earlier parts of this video series. But let's take a look at 3 different structures we can use when providing really quality feedback. So one is to make it positive. Draw attention to the positive elements of the work that are demonstrated towards a student getting closer to that task, as opposed to only focusing on corrective feedback or incorrect technique ideas or approaches that that student has created. So this can be really beneficial. And again, tied to this idea of making the feedback actionable, because we're creating that confidence and the student feels like they can do something with the feedback provided. 2, make it constructive. So feedback provides constructive criticism with the guidance to improve and successfully complete the task. So it's reasonable to point out mistakes the student are making or create corrective feedback comments for the student. But we always have to provide it in a way that's going to give them that insight on how to improve. So maybe here's my corrective comment and here's what can be done to get closer and minimize that gap between where they are and where we want them to get to. And the last idea here is tying it into past performance. So refer and reference past performance and feedback from previous efforts and when improvements were made on this particular task. So demonstrating evidence of growth, and they can use that feedback to improve. So what's more empowering than reminding the learner that, hey, previously, this is what happened last time, and I made these comments, and look, this is where you put that comment and you made it actionable and you created change in your work, and now you're able to do fill in the blank technique or strategy or skill or ability that you demonstrated. And I, as the evaluator, as the lead learner, has recognized that growth, and I want to point that out to you. So that can be really powerful when we're trying to provide actionable and kind of feedback that students can work with. So I hope this part 5 in the video series on what does quality feedback look like was helpful, and it's giving you a few ideas and insights, again, on how you can restructure or think about redesigning or reapproaching how you provide feedback to your learners. So if you're ready for part 6 in the feedback series, go ahead and click on the link above, and I look forward to seeing you in the next step of this Feedback Masterclass brought to you by Mote.